Okay, I have some images open here inside of Bridge. I'm going to open them into Camera Raw. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 selected, and each one have something different wrong with them. There's some up here that are too blue. This one's too dark overall. Excuse me. So I'm going to open these up all at the same time. To open them up, a shortcut for doing this is Command R on your keyboard, or you can right click this and hit open in Camera Raw. And those, you can see here I have all of these open over here to the right, but we'll only work on one at a time. So I'm going to click on this top one and work on this one. The values are bad, color is really bad. So what we need to do over here on the right side is start with the temperature and tint, get that correct first, and then we're going to go ahead and go down in this basic panel here and then finish these tabs for this video. Good place to start is if it's a JPEG, you have three choices here under white balance on this drop down menu. You have custom, meaning if you move these sliders, it'll automatically make it a custom setting, or if you click auto, it will attempt to change those colors. It's okay, a little bit too much on the yellow. I think I need to pull this back a little bit and probably pull that back just a little bit. So now it's changed the name to custom because I moved it off that auto setting. Another way you can do this is if we go to AsShot, is to click on the white balance tool, which is this eyedropper. And for this one to work, you actually have to have something in your picture that is a gray. In this picture, there's really nothing in here that's a gray per se. So it doesn't really work. Maybe in one of these other videos it'll work, other images. So I'm going to do the auto again and pull that back, pull this back a little bit. So there's the color's better. Now I need to move down to these sliders. I'm going to skip over the exposure. I'm going to go straight down to the highlights and shadows. What these do, actually I'm going to go down to the whites and blacks. So if we look up here at the histogram, this is the important thing we need to look at and watch to make sure our values are correct. This line here, the left side of this line is your black point and the right side is the white point. So right now I have nothing in the black, so if there's none of this histogram is over here at all, there's nothing near the blacks. It's heavily shifted to the right, and then there's this white line here is showing what's going to be clipped. So if I click on this, it's a clipping warning, and then this is telling me what is 100% pure white and what things are not going to print any ink at all. The black one, black point, will turn blue, and that will tell us what areas are going to be 100% black with no texture in it at all. So what I need to do first is I need to pull these whites back a little bit, so they were too far over. So I'm going to pull these back to help remove those highlights. And then I'm going to adjust the blacks. We need more contrast, so you can see the histogram, it pulls it over. I'm going to pull it over until it starts to spike. Thing you can do to check your points is if you hold the Option key down while you drag both of these points, you can see that the red and the green are two areas where there is blown out areas for the whites. Okay, so if I let go, you can see this area right in here will be blown out, and there is a little bit of texture here, believe it or not, in that area. So if I click and drag this over, that's pretty good. I'm going to hold down the Option key, and I'm going to go back this way until the blacks start creeping in. And down here, this starts to spike here. So as I hold the Option key down and move, you can see those start coming in. So that looks pretty good there. Now I'm going to go up to my highlights and shadows. These separate the highlights and the shadows from each other. So if I go to the left, it's for the shadows. If I go this direction, it's going to take away or clip the shadows. And in the contrast, it's going to add more contrast between the blacks and the whites. So overall, that's not too bad. And then I'm going to move up to the overall exposure now. This will be my last setting. And I'm trying to bring this histogram a little bit more to the center. And what this is just like changing exposure in your camera when you shot. If we go to the plus, it's going to add stops overall. If we come to the minus, it's going to take away exposure. And if you ever work with a slider too much, you can always double click on that slider and it will reset for you. That looks pretty good right there. And if we come up to the preview, that's where we started. That's where we are now. It gets rid of that blue cast and then adds some extra values to it. Then lastly, come down here to the bottom. In this clarity slider, what it will do is add some detail to your midtones here. So it will, they're very flat here, and if I drag this a little bit to the right, it's going to add some of that. And then lastly, I'm going to add a little bit more vibrance and color. Okay. When you're done with this, down here at the bottom you have options. Open image will open inside Photoshop. Cancel will cancel what you just did. Done will open it back inside of Camera Raw with corrections. So this little icon up here tells us that I made corrections. So it will copy it over top of your original. If I want to save a separate one, I can come to Save Image. I can tell it to save in the same location. I can say I want this to be the document name, which was the original name, plus the word fixed on it. And then I want this to be a JPEG. And hit save. Okay. Now let's say I took this one and this one from the same location, and my settings are going to be pretty much the same. So what we can do on this one is I can come over here to this one, to this presets, and then I can tell it to make a new preset and call this whatever you want, Pittsburgh. And then all of these are the settings that you have changed, which I changed most of these, but I'm going to go ahead and leave them all checked. So if I didn't change anything in those settings, it's not going to matter. I'm going to hit OK. And now if I come down here to the second picture, and I click on Pittsburgh, it's going to apply all those changes that I just did to that same picture, to this picture. Okay. Then you can still go back and readjust them individually. So my blacks were a little clipped, so I'm going to bring this, hold the Option key and bring this over to remove some of that clipping, like this. Probably a little bit more contrast in the buildings. And I think that looks pretty good overall. Okay, so we were here, and with a couple clicks I ended up here. This one, we're going to try to attempt to use the white balance on this one. Looks like there are some items that might be gray, like this here, or this is here, this column, or this right here. I think I liked that a little better. So there's my original, to blue, and I click this column here, and then each time you click something new, it's going to change it for you. So I click back on this again, and it'll change back to that setting. So that looks pretty good for the white balance. Then I'm going to go through and jump back down to the blacks, hold the Option key, bring this over to the black, start to clip, and I'm going to bring this back for the whites. And then if you have an area that's clipped, that's outside of the focal point area, which is like this white area over here, this roof, it doesn't matter. So you may have some areas that are clipped. It's not going to hurt the picture. So I'm going to then drag this over. We can add some more blacks in. And I can hold down the shift key again, I'm sorry, the option key, and drag until those come in. Same idea here for the whites. If it was too much white, I can get rid of some of those highlights. Drag the contrast out a little bit to add some more detail. Overall was okay. Then come down here to the bottom, add some clarity, a little bit of vibrance. That looks pretty good. Now let's jump down to this last one. Overall, the values are overall a little too dark. I can tell overall they're a little too dark. I don't have, most of my histogram is shifted over to the left. So for this one, if I drag this one over until that histogram is touching to the right, which is about a third stop, I can drag that over. Jump back down here to my blacks. I'm going to hold down this option key. And they're starting to clip there. And then my whites starting to clip about here. Looks good. And then I'm going to come up to my shadows. And remember, the shadows, if you drag to the left, it clips them, meaning you lose detail inside the shadows. If I drag this to the right, it's going to bring details in. If we clear over here, you can't see any detail at all in this roof line. If I drag this over, if there was detail in there, it will expose that detail. So now I have, and this will only affect the shadow areas also. It doesn't affect the sky or anything. So I can bring this if I want to unclip that so I can see that detail. And the highlights, same idea. If I want to lose some of the highlights, I come this direction. If I want to blow out the highlights, it comes this way. I want to bring some details back into the clouds. And I'll bring the contrast out a little bit. And then I'm going to come down here. Oh, I never did the white balance. So let's try auto. Didn't move it much, so we're pretty close. Bring my clarity out. This will really bring the detail out in the grass. Color out in the grass. Okay. And then once again for each one of these, if I need to save more than one, because I worked on this one and this one, and I already saved that one. If I hold down the command key and I click on multiple images, I can select more than one at a time. Come down to save image, document fix, hit save. Down here it says there's 3 remaining. So that symbol right there says it's saving. I'm going to hit cancel on these. Oops. I'll let that finish. Cancel. Yes. Now I have my original. That's one I did earlier. I have my original fixed one. I'm going to come over to original fixed, original fixed, way better. Here's my original fixed. Look at the detail in this area here. Really pops out. So this is way too dark. That looks good. So on this project, what you need to do is you need to fix 5 images. Try to find images that need fix. So you're not going to pick 5 stars. So you're not going to pick ones that were really good that you liked it. Everything was crisp and the color was good and the values were good. You're going to pick 3 stars. Ones that have potential that could be fixed. You're going to open those up inside Camera Raw, and then making sure you follow the procedures of either you do the auto for the white balance, or you use this tool here to try to find something that's a middle gray inside the picture that you can use to help get at least a start on where your white balance is going to be, and then adjust it accordingly. And then you're going to jump down to whites and blacks, holding the option key down while you. Then you're going to jump to shadows, highlights, contrast, and then exposure, and last you come down to clarity and a little bit of vibrance. Then you're going to finish it up by doing a save image. Leave the location the same. It'll put it right in the same folder beside the other one. Just type the word fixed right here and you hit save. Then when you're done, I want you to hit cancel, and what that'll do is anything that we fixed on your original, it won't fix it. It'll only be fixed on the one that you saved. And then what we'll do is then I'll show you later how to turn these in so they're side by side so we can see the before and the after. And that's it. So this was a lesson on how to use the beginnings of Camera Raw on the basic tab, starting with white balance and then moving through the values in the basic tab.